Hello everybody, welcome to the very first episode of Story Marketing's videocast. Now what is that exactly? A video show dealing with marketing and business related elements within South Africa, where we look at businesses and the interesting people who run them to figure out how businesses do what they do, how to avoid certain pitfalls, and how to just support you when it comes to giving your business the traction and attention that it needs. So my name's Ricardo, and for the last few years I've been running a marketing business an agency from Johannesburg, and it's been very interesting working with a range of businesses and getting a sense of what it takes, because the principles essentially remain the same even though the content within the businesses change. So whether you're a plumber, an electrician, whether you sell pet food, whatever may be the case, there are ways to give your business the kind of leverage it needs within the 21st century. There are ways to do it digitally which can put you in front of the audience that you need. So today's episode is all about the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry being one of the biggest growing industries around the world. There's a huge amount of interest and traction at the moment, bearing in mind that it's only very recently found legalization in certain countries, or elements thereof has found some kind of legalization, which means there's now opportunity. And very recently I attended the Cannabis Expo in Johannesburg, and it has been running for a couple of years now, and I was just really interested to get a sense of what kind of business opportunities there are, what kind of things people are trying to do, what kind of people are attracted to the industry, and overall my sense and opinion about these things. Now, I'm not a futurist, I can't see into the future, but I do have a gut that tells me certain things, and often our gut is quite good if you listen to it and trust it enough, especially within business. Sometimes those gut feelings do give us a way to make decisions. So I want to give you my analysis on that and just share with you some thoughts that I've had with it. So without further ado, the first thing that I noticed about the Cannabis Expo, and may I just say that the event itself was very well organized. It had a good flow to it. There was nothing about it that was a sad, these kind of exhibits. You go to the expos and there's like three people in the corner and it's just sad. And this wasn't the case. It had a good feel to it. There was a nice vibe and energy. The event was put together very well. Everything seemed to work very well. And that was really, really great. I think as the first in Johannesburg, in terms of that, this was put together very well. So first I have to applaud the organizers. Well done to that. That was awesome. Now, the first thing that that really took me aback was the fact that everybody was of very different backgrounds and ages and environments. You had very young up and coming people who wanted to create businesses, and many of them that I spoke to had previously been in corporate or some very linear style of work where they wake up in the morning at 9 and then they come home at night at 5 o'clock, and they sort of left this to pursue something a little bit more entrepreneurial, a little bit more work for yourself. And that for me is exciting. I mean, we have young people in their early 20s who kind of they were busy studying, or they just finished studying something very, very generic. And I say that with respect, but somebody I spoke to was a lawyer, or in their second year of practicing law, and they were like, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to go into cannabis-based cosmetics. And that was very exciting. Some other young guys, which were really, for me, such an exciting thing to see. They really just want to create something for themselves. They're excited and they're passionate. Having said that, you also had a very straight-laced, up and down sort of Germanesque, Swiss sort of companies there which were selling large-scale farming solutions. And because the legislation and the legality of these things are always a little bit grey and they're always changing, it means that everybody's sort of poising themselves to catch that rising trend. I think that's important. To be ahead of the curve is always fun. Sometimes you can be too far ahead, but nonetheless, that variety was very exciting. There were traditional healers, people who'd already been working with the plant and with products that they've made themselves for a number of years, if not generations. There was a sense that everybody was looking for a deal. Everybody was looking for connections. Everyone wanted to network, and that is pretty exciting. The other thing that came across was that everybody is getting into some sort of CBD extract or some kind of product with CBD, and you could see that from coffee to biltong. The biltong was actually very good, to water infused with CBD, right through to obviously the oils, and everything everything in between, including hemp products, things that clothing and so on. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry is getting into cannabis. Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, that can't be sustainable, obviously, because unless you're passionate about it and have a long-term game plan in the way in which you're going to tackle your business, within 3 or 4 years, the majority of people that I encountered would probably no longer be in business. And that's just goes without saying in any industry, actually. That can happen where there's just this massive interest, there's a quick buck to be made, people come in, they lose interest, they don't have the passion or the interest for the actual business, and down they go. That'll happen. So there is that sense of like this is a gold rush, for sure. That kind of like, I'm going to go find my fortunes in cannabis products. And I just think that in terms of longevity, each of these businesses are going to have to dig very deep because every second person is selling the same thing. So it's going to be differentiation that they're going to have to be making along product lines. They're going to have to think about how to stand out in a crowd, and the crowd is fairly big. There were 1 or 2 products I thought were quite unique to the space, which already gives them a bit of a differentiator. But even marketing CBD-based products, cannabis products, is still very tricky with Facebook not liking that, not being able to pay for advertising there. Google AdWords also not too happy with Google not wanting to promote this as a paid for thing. It's going to be very direct to consumer. It's going to have to be something which you reach out, create connections, create small networks and pockets of people which can spread the message about the products that people are trying to build around. So that's quite fascinating. I think there's a lot of room as time also goes on, as things become a little bit less gray and decisions are made around whether or not paid for advertising can work. But they are always going to be in a regulated space, much like the alcohol space. They're always going to be regulated, so they're going to have to always think out of the box in terms of marketing and how to make that happen. So I think right now, building relationships, building brand awareness through real connection is going to have to take precedent. And I say this because that's the same for every single business. Every single business has to do that, actually. The whole idea of having an automated system that somehow just brings you business is false, completely false, and it's going to take a lot of time and energy. But it's exciting that there's such a mix of people and that they have so much difference in terms of their backgrounds and their belief structures. You could sense people there just for figuring out how to make a quick buck. You could talk to people who've been doing it their whole lives and that had a spiritual aspect to the business as well, which I think is very interesting. The other thing that excited me was to just see how eager people were to share and how much they wanted to educate. So the big thing within the cannabis industry is education of your audience. That's still going to take many years in an environment such as South Africa, where people are slow to take up certain things. There's a lot of stigma, and stigma tends to also stick around for a lot longer than perhaps in other environments. So they're going to have a long go at getting people educated, having people understand what their products are, how to use them safely, and so on. So there's going to be a lot of work about that. And unless the businesses are willing to do that education, if they're simply there to sell a product, they will also die, which is just, I suppose, any new industry. The cream will rise to the top, and that's the big one, is that this bubble will eventually pop. Eventually you've put cannabis oil, CBD, into absolutely everything, and after that, only the best products with the best kind of branding. When I say branding, I mean that kind of promise, the relationship that is created between themselves and their consumers, which is at this point very direct and intimate. Those are the ones that are going to survive. So overall, I think it was a phenomenally interesting experience. And if you get an opportunity to go next year, you really should, because it's yes, there's a lot of opportunity there. But for you to rise above that, you're going to need a very strong marketing strategy with some very practical ways of actually approaching things, since it's not so simple as to just click boost on Facebook or pay for that little bit of exposure. You're going to have to come up with a very real plan that's going to involve a lot of grind and a lot of thinking and a lot of creating. Having said that, I spoke to a number of exhibitors there, and 2 of them, only 2, which for me is a big thing to pay note or pay attention to. Only 2 of them create content. So by that I mean people are either writing or blogging, vlogging through video or audio as podcasts, or taking images and video of the events that they do, putting it out there on social media, and just ultimately getting their narrative out there. Only 2 of them All the rest are going to be dependent and depend on whoever they're reselling, whoever the brand is that they're actually representing. They give them stuff and then they put it up there. But that doesn't invigorate or create attention to a local space. Seeing an American video looped for me doesn't work. I need to have it speak directly to me and in terms of my understanding and background and culture and reality. And as soon as you see something a bit novel, two of which the people I spoke to, which really rocked and really made me feel very what would be the word, optimistic about the future of business, are very young guys. They're doing podcasts, they're doing video, they're shooting stuff, they're working hard to try and create a brand for themselves about things that they're actually passionate about. So that's really exciting to see that was also an element that came into play there. Creating content for your business is one of the most critical ways to differentiate yourself, and it's also one of the hardest things to do, because there's a million and one things that you could do, and you almost feel paralyzed in doing so. So that's the first piece of advice I can give you, is you've got to start thinking about yourself as a marketing agency first. You are a PR agency. You create the story you want people to know about your business first. Secondly, you are then a plumber, electrician, you sell things, you walk dogs, whatever may be the case. But that's secondary, because if people don't know you, don't have an association with you, you don't have things going out that grabs their attention, it doesn't really matter what you have on offer. So then it sits by the wayside. You can have a great product, it can do all the things that it claims to do, and no one knows that you exist. Vice versa, you can put yourself out there and claim many, many things, and you don't have anything to give, and that quickly bombs on you, because people are quick to criticize that and will implode you on social media. They really, really will. And I saw this with Black Friday as well. A little topic for another discussion where we can go into a little more detail. But that's it, guys. The Cannabis Expo was excellent. It was a wonderful flavor to the event. There were a lot of young and interesting people doing things that really, for me, gives and embodies the flavor of South African business, or what it should be, which is make it happen. Make it happen. And yes, there are complexities around legislation that's always going to have to be tap danced around. As long as you're on the right side of that, great. And a lot of people were very concerned and were very willing to do the right thing. But they also would like some of that legislation to loosen up a little, allow them the space to actually do business and not have to figure out ways to cleverly find loopholes or not even offer a service or a product in the first place because they're not allowed to legally. So there's a lot that can be done there. I think the big rush right now is just hot. It's cool. Put cannabis into everything, and that will eventually bottom out. There's no doubt about that, because every second brother's cousin, uncle's mother's father is getting into this stuff, and unless they have a passion and figure out a differentiator with their brand, who they're targeting and how they do it, they're just going to be another business. So ultimately they won't exist, because the industry cannot sustain that many operators. So if you have a chance, check it out. If not, check it out next year. But wow, what a great event, and those are some of my thoughts. So awesome. Thank you so much for watching this little clip. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I would love to also share more of my ideas. If you have a business that you're running and you'll need some advice around marketing strategically, especially on a practical level, that's the big thing, is that it's not all this pipe dream, pie in the sky junk. You've got to make it very practical. Please leave a comment and I'll be happily get back to you. So thanks very much. This was the first episode, and thank you for watching.